Godot 4.4 has a ton of exciting new features and improvements, and we'll be highlighting a few of them in this video. Let's get started. The Game tab allows for better control of a running game. Toggle the 2D or 3D button, and you can select nodes to view their properties and edit them in the inspector. You can also suspend the game, skip frame by frame, and override the camera to move it freely around the scene. You can also display multiple nodes at a position you click and choose the one you want. To toggle gizmo visibility, click on the eye, and to regain normal inputs, toggle the input button back on. Working in tandem with the Game tab, the Game window can also be embedded in the editor. This can be used separately from the Game tab feature, and you can toggle this setting and run the game in a separate window. As of now, window embedding is not available on Mac. Universal UID support will provide more seamless project refactoring. Scripts and shaders will now have their own dedicated UID file, which will serve as their primary reference instead of the file path. That way, changing a file's folder won't cause Godot to explode. You can also now reference a file by its UID in your script, so you don't need to update your script when you change the file path. Make sure to add these UID files to version control going forward. You can set favorites for a node's properties to pin them at the top of the inspector, making properties you frequently change easier to access. Type dictionaries now provide stronger guarantees in your code and a much better UX in the inspector. This feature was implemented at the core of the engine, meaning it is available for all scripting languages. You can now load WAV files at runtime, which is useful for loading user-generated content during your game. A documentation tooltip will display when you hover over something in the editor, including documentation you have written yourself. You no longer need to switch between the editor and reference docs to get quick information. The Export Tool button annotation allows you to easily create buttons in the inspector, which is useful for debugging and quick modifications. You can automatically start the profiler when you run your game, improving the debugging experience by capturing valuable data immediately. The Warning Ignore Start and Warning Ignore Restore annotations allow you to safely scope warning suppressions. Not like we really pay attention to warnings anyway though. Object snapping makes 3D objects easier to place in the editor. This can be toggled by selecting an object and pressing Shift-G. Distances in 3D can easily be measured with the ruler mode. A camera 3D's view can be previewed in the inspector, making it much easier to adjust a 3D camera. You can visualize 3D particle emission shapes, so no more guessing as to where your particles will appear. 3D collision shapes have customizable colors, which makes debugging close or overlapping collisions much easier. Animation markers allow you to create subregions of an animation you can jump to or loop without playing the entire animation. This is also supported inside an animation tree. Look at Modifier 3D helps with procedural animation by providing an easy way to make your 3D character look in a target direction. This comes with ways to refine the behavior, such as angle limitations. The Springbone Simulator 3D brings jiggle physics to 3D models. This is especially useful for things like hair and ropes. Jolt has officially been integrated with the Godot engine for 3D physics. Godot Physics is still the default 3D physics engine, so to use Jolt, you'll need to go to Project Settings, Physics, 3D, Physics Engine, and select Jolt Physics. Physics interpolation has been added for 3D objects, which allows your physics update to run at a low FPS while maintaining smooth movement. Uber Shader removes shader stuttering by compiling a flexible but slow version of shaders at load time. These can then be used as a fallback while optimized versions of the shaders load in the background. Support for AGX tone mapping has been added. AGX gives a filmic quality to images that handles bright scenes much better than Godot's other tone mappers. Baking lights with transparent objects is now supported. You no longer need to choose between casting shadows as if the object was fully opaque or not casting shadows at all. Shadow caster masks allow you to apply a mask on Light 3D nodes to select which rendering layers to apply shadows to. This allows better control over where shadows appear. Quick Load now uses fuzzy search, so you no longer need to type everything perfectly when looking for a file. When in Quick Load, you can also right-click on a file and choose to show it in your file system. The project manager opens at a larger size for better visibility of more projects, and you can import a project without opening it by unchecking the Edit Now button. You can also open broken projects in recovery mode. This will disable some features, so you can at least open your project to debug the problem. And as with any update, many optimizations and improvements have been made to the engine, such as project loading, modifying the scene tree, better rendering, and more. You should be able to iterate faster and see better performance as a result. And that should do it for this video. I wanted to keep this kind of short, so there's a lot more we didn't get to cover. I'll link the full blog post highlighting the release in the description. The question for the day is, what are you most excited for with Godot 4.4? Mine is the game tab. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.